Welcome to the Diva D-Town. Welcome to the Diva D-Town, where bold, confident women embrace life unapologetically. From love and sex to wellness and reinvention, we keep it raw, real, and powerful. No filters, no limits. Just fearless conversations to help you thrive. Let's dive in with Diva Mia and Diva Kat.
Hello, this is Diva Mia, and today we're going to talk about sleep and night sweats and sex drive all wrapped up into one. I think sometimes as women we think we're supposed to figure out things magically on our own. We're tough, we figured out how to have babies, we figured out how to parent them, and a lot of times we don't seek answers on things we think we should already know about. Today we're going to talk something that can quietly wreck your sex life and your longevity is sleep. For me, sleep is so important. More specifically, what happens to you when you're exhausted? I have a friend I was just talking to, and she's having so much difficulty sleeping. She's a nurse, and just the anxiety, I think, sometimes gets to us. If you're waking up drenched and you're going through menopause, sweaty, or you're throwing the covers off because you're pulling them back on, and you're starting at around 3 o'clock, you're having issues, and then wondering why you're not particularly interested in having sex after you haven't slept. Here's the connection we don't talk about enough. It's difficult to feel sexy when you're exhausted. And during perimenopause and menopause, sleep problems and sexual changes, they collide at about the exact same time together. You were used to say, oh, I'm ready, I'm good to go. But now, maybe not tonight. Or my personal favorite is, don't touch me, I finally found the cold side of the pillow. Or, let me relax and calm down before we have sex. If that resonates with you, this episode's for you. So today we're going to talk about why sleep and libido are connected and what night sweats have to do with it. For women that have night sweats, and not everybody does when they go through menopause, there's hormones that are involved, and you have to build a practical sleep ladder. You have to do a lot of steps now just to get to sleep. And then bedtime intimacy, sometimes you have to reset it, and so that you can say yes again and feel sexy again. Even when you're a little tired, you might find ways around it. And we're going to talk about ways to get the best night's sleep you can when you're going through menopause. So let's establish something that's important. Sleep problems during menopause are so common. But menopause isn't always the only culprit. Sometimes it's hot flashes, night sweats, but sometimes it's just changes in the mood or in your sexual desire as well. But other things can pile on too. So if you have stress, maybe stress from work or stress with the kids, or you're doing too much, you've said yes to too many things, or you've been drinking or had too much caffeine late in the day. The difference is when we get older, those things affect us. And some of us are on medications that can have a big impact, or just anxiety in general. And then you may not have sleep apnea, but your partner may, or they snore, or you have pain in areas you didn't have pain before, or you might even have restless legs, or all of these things can affect your sleep. And sometimes we just take on too much. And something happens, when your brain decides at 2:47 every morning that it's the ideal time to review every questionable decision you made in 1998. It's exhausting. Or you wake up with a new business idea and you want to create some type of business solution or company. That's happened too. I've had it personally happen. So don't automatically assume that every sleep problem is just menopause. Sometimes it's our brain just on overdrive. And if you're suddenly if you see dramatic changes, you snore heavily, you wake up gasping for air, you might have sleep apnea. And that can also create persistent insomnia, because now you're afraid of choking in your sleep, which can cause insomnia. So let's talk about night sweats though, because that happens to a lot of women as well. And hot flashes at night aren't merely uncomfortable. They can repeatedly interrupt your sleep, and they can cause fear and anxiety. Imagine that your body is trying to move through a normal sleep cycle, and suddenly your internal thermostat goes rogue and heats you up, and you're hot, you're awake, you throw off the covers, and then you get really cold. So your covers go back on. Maybe you need to get up and go pee. Maybe your partner moves and they wake you up, and then your brain wakes up again. And so you've woken up several times. This again is why I've been talking about having a sleep ring, an aura, or some other type of ring that can track your sleep. But, sometimes getting a fantastic 4 hours is all that you can get for sleep. That's not good for your body. It's not good for your weight. That's not good for your health. Even when you remembered every awakening the next morning, fragmented sleep can leave you feeling depleted and exhausted. Then when your conversations about sex begin, your libido is it's retired. Your libido says, I want to take a break. It doesn't want to kick in because you're tired. Your sexual response is connected to your brain, nervous system, hormones, physical comfort, relationships, even the environment and overall energy. That's why they also say you should be sleeping between 65 and 68, especially when you're in menopause. You're going to need the cooler environment. When your body desperately wants sleep, sex can move pretty far down the priority list. Women sometimes interpret their declining desire and sexual desire as evidence that something's wrong with them or they're in their relationship. Sometimes there's a relationship problem, but sometimes it's just hormones. Think about what chronic sleep disruption can affect. It affects your energy, your mood, your stress tolerance. I know when I don't sleep, little things bother me that may not have bothered me before. We have emotional regulation, and sometimes our emotional regulation gets a little unregulated because we haven't slept. How motivated are you to start that new project the next day when you only had 2 hours of sleep? Your body image suffers because you're gaining weight because you're not sleeping. Your exercise recovery, if you are working out, decreases. And then your patience in your relationship and sexual interest towards your partner decreases. Then add in vaginal dryness or discomfort, night sweats, and work, kids, aging parents, and all of a sudden, your partner becomes lowest on your priority list. Suddenly, your low libido starts looking a little more complicated. It's got all these issues. This is why I want you to stop treating libido as one little hormone dial. It's got so many things that are going on. Sexual desire is more like a mixing board. Sleep is one dial, hormones is another, stress is another, and then quality of relationship is another. And don't forget that physical comfort and body confidence. All of those things together can impact your sleep, can impact your sexual libido. I know we've been talking about it a little bit in the last few podcasts, but it's so important. You can have several of those turned down simultaneously. It totally affects your sleep. Let's talk hormones without pretending that there's the answer. This is the answer to everything, because a lot of people think it is. Let me just go get some hormone replacement and I'll fix everything, because during menopause, estrogen and progesterone change significantly. Progesterone is one of the big ones that affects sleep, but testosterone also changes across adulthood and can play a role in our sexual function. Declining estrogen can contribute to where you have vaginal dryness, burning, irritation. Sex just hurts. Let's be honest. Sometimes sex just hurts. I've had that problem before in my past. Before, maybe the person was comfortable, but now it's uncomfortable because it hurts. And then you get urinary tract infections sometimes, or you get changes in your vaginal tissue. And pain it's not an aphrodisiac. It hurts. If your brain has learned that sex hurts, avoiding sex is completely a predictable response. We don't want to do things that are painful. That's why it's so hard to get people to consistently go to the gym sometimes. There's treatment available, though. So depending on your health history and symptoms, a doctor you can discuss options on vaginal moisturizers, internal estrogen, lubricants, etc. There's just different things you can do to help with that. But every piece of the puzzle you're going to have to work at. And I know it seems overwhelming. I know you feel like every week there's something new you have to fix. But believe me, once you get some of these things resolved, life will just open up and it'll be much easier. Systemic menopausal hormone therapy may also be considered too if you're in this situation, especially women that have symptoms such as hot flash, night sweats, and vaginal dryness, because hormone therapy isn't appropriate for every woman, and your decision should be individualized based on your medical history and risk factors, and talk to your doctor. But it is definitely something that might be needed. And testosterone also deserves its own careful consideration. I know some women don't want to go on testosterone, but they give you such a low dose that it's good if you can get the right doctor to give you the right dose. Therapy is sometimes considered for, certain postmenopausal women for testosterone, especially if you have low sexual desire and everything else seems to be okay in your relationship. This isn't something to self-prescribe though, or to get from someone that's not qualified to give it, because most testosterone does not automatically equal more libido, but it can help. It's just a helping. It's like a ladder. So you have to build your sleep ladder. So instead of throwing 12 supplements at insomnia and hoping one knocks you unconscious, you need to think of it as a sleep ladder. When you start one thing and then see how it helps, and then see if you need more. Make your bedtime actually conducive to sleep too. You got to have a cool bedroom. You have to have breathable bedding and sleepwear, or sleep naked. Sleeping naked, I highly recommend. It is actually very comforting as long as you can lock kids out of the room, and you can reduce, unnecessary light. If you have light in the bedroom, that's not good for sleeping. Make sure you have an eye mask if you have any light at all, or get rid of the light. Get some room blackout or room darkening curtains. I have those as well. And then limit noise or use a consistent background that whenever it plays, your mind knows this is my sleep time. In nature, there's not a lot of noise, but there is some. It's not silent. So if you were sleeping out camping, you would hear some crickets, possibly a little bit of breeze. So it's nice to have a little bit of white noise or brown noise in the background that can help. If you have a partner that snores, that's not brown noise or white noise. You need to figure something out to resolve that situation. But having a little bit of noise, maybe ocean waves or some type of peaceful noise is great. If night sweats are the major problem, think in layers. Maybe you sleep naked. I honestly think that's a really good solution. It does help because if you have to throw off the covers, you can. And you want things you can remove quickly. And then you may have to put clothes on if you're having night sweats, or just have extra blankets nearby. But, you have to, there's consistency, and you have to run with a rhythm with your sleep. You should be going to bed at the same time every night. You should be waking up consistently, even on the weekends. Just get in the habit. If you need to go to bed at 8:30 to get up at 4 a.m., make that happen. If you need to go to bed at 9 or 10 because you need to get up at 7 or 8, that's your deal. But figure out exactly how much sleep you need and your rhythm. Don't do the bare minimum, because the bare minimum sleep, because I can survive on 4 and 5 hours of sleep, but I'm not thriving. What you can survive on and what you thrive on are two different things. You need to document your morning routine and your nightly routine and get them dialed in. So you're doing the exact same thing every morning, the exact same thing every night. Maybe you take magnesium, but maybe you take a sleep aid, but figure out what's working for you. And getting natural light after waking up in the morning helps with your circadian rhythm. So if you can get outside even for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, that's going to help. You should also be moving. Don't just sit on your butt all day. Get out there and walk, lift some weights, go swimming, do yoga, whatever works for your body. But regular exercise is going to help you sleep better as well. Sometimes intense exercise, though, can stimulate and make it harder to sleep. So if you're lifting weights and you're lifting a little too heavy, it may be that that's disrupting your sleep, or it's causing soreness in your body so you don't sleep very well. So here's what to watch for with the sleep disruptions, because you need to be detective. And do you have worse sleep when you drink at night or have a late meal? Honestly, I wish that dinner places opened up at 4 or 5 instead of like 5:30 or 6, because I think we should all be eating very early. You've got to have a 3-hour break between the time you eat and the time you go to sleep in order to have your liver process food correctly anyway. So you need that break. Also, you shouldn't be having caffeine or coffee or too late. Even green tea can affect sleep. Also, try not to have an argument with your spouse or your children 9 o'clock at night. That's not going to help you sleep, because then your mind's going to be thinking about that argument and replaying it in your head all night long. Sometimes there's stressful situations. There might be a death of a partner or a family member, or you could have a breakup or a fight, and that creates stress late at night. And then your brain runs through it during the night, and you need to be able to clear your head at night. And then scrolling from social media in bed is a very bad thing, because you're going to have a lot of blue light, and B, it's going to keep you up and thinking about something that maybe you shouldn't be focused on. Then also double check your bedroom. Is it too warm? Can you keep it down to 65 to 7 or 67? If you keep the bedroom cooler, it's going to make you sleep better. Alcohol is the particularly sneaky one, because most people think, oh, if I drink, I'll be able to fall asleep later, but you're not sleeping. You don't have quality sleep. And then caffeine can hang around much longer than people think. I don't recommend having caffeine after 2 o'clock, and a lot of people have it after dinner, but then it may keep you up at night. So if you're struggling to sleep, cut out the caffeine earlier and cut out the alcohol. Your body needs to transition from doing whatever it's doing to sleeping. And a lot of people need a transition runway. They need 30 to 60 minutes. So when they get into bed, they fall right to sleep. So you have to dim the lights. You put away your work. Maybe you get off your phone at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. You turn down any stimulation. You turn off the TV. Some people do yoga at night and stretch or read, and it puts them to sleep. I know me, reading a book helps me sleep. And then if you can take a warm shower or bath before you go to sleep, that might help as well. But relax in the way that works for you, because everyone's a little unique. Meditation, slowing breathing, whatever your ritual is, but get a consistent ritual so you can do it every single day. And then remember that you need to treat the actual problem. So if it's night sweats, you're going to have to figure out what you can do. Maybe there's some supplements you can take, some hormones you can take to help with that. If it's vaginal pain after intimacy, you might need to figure out solutions to help with vaginal dryness or soreness. And then if you're snoring and waking up exhausted, maybe you need to get a sleep study done and determine if you have sleep apnea. Restless legs also can keep people up, and I know that was mine for a while, and I found out I was having a magnesium deficiency, and that assisted me. But you'll have to find out what's going on with you specifically. And sometimes you need a cognitive behavior therapist to analyze everything to see what's going on. So you may need medical intervention, because sometimes the best sleep aid isn't a pill, it's a process or certain things that you do right before you go to sleep. And then there's the bedroom intimacy reset. Now, I'm a lover of having sex right before bed because it makes me exhausted and I pass out pretty quickly. But one mistake couple makes is allowing bedtime to become the only possible window for intimacy. You can have intimacy in the morning, you can have it at lunch. You've worked all day, handled responsibilities, so sometimes people come home and they're not in the mood to have sex. I understand that as well. But maybe you figure out solutions to make your intimacy funner. Maybe you have a lunch date. Maybe you have a morning before the kids get up. Figure out something to keep the intimacy going, because intimacy helps with sleep as well. You're supposed to become sexually enthusiastic, but maybe not at 10:30 at night. Maybe that's your downtime. Maybe that's when you want to sleep, because sometimes when women have sex late at night, it makes it harder for them to sleep at night. It depends on the woman. Your timing just needs to change. Maybe have it in the morning or during a shower or after a nap. Stop assuming sex has to belong at bedtime, and stop assuming sex has to be in the bedroom. It's fun to explore different places and go different locations and have it at different times of the day, because some women moving intimacy 2 or 3 hours earlier can change the entire experience. It can make it funner for people. I hope that you can keep intimacy going late into your 70s and 80s, because ladies, we're having sex for a very long time. Men, they give out a little bit sooner, so you might have to help them along. But sex should be something fun. So here's another reset. If you're not affectionate during the day, if you're not touching each other during the day, sex at night sometimes becomes more robotic, and that's not fun either. So sometimes try to cuddle and initiate cuddling or playfulness, because that helps with intimacy. Maybe you just hold hands, or you massage each other's shoulders, or you lie together and kiss or cuddle and talk. That's intimate as well. And sometimes then you don't stop there. You keep going, because if you're safe and relaxed with a person, you're going to create a space for desire. And the pressure usually does the opposite if it's just sex in bed. So create the intimacy prior to going to bed. And sometimes it's spontaneous, other times it's responsive based off desires. This is one of the biggest concepts I want women to understand, is desire doesn't always happen first. Sometimes people experience a spontaneous desire. They're sitting there doing absolutely nothing, and suddenly you think sex sounds fantastic, and they go have sex, and sometimes women initiate it and sometimes men. But that means interest may develop as well with a responsive type of desire. So maybe you're flirting, kissing, or touching, but then the sequence can look more like you have connection, then you touch, and then you get aroused. Now there's desire, or desire initiates sex. This distinction can be freeing. You don't have to be completely desiring sex in order to have sex. It can lead with you and your partner. You can start playful touching and just talking and have intimacy, and then it can lead to sex. You don't necessarily need to feel wildly turned on before intimacy starts. But that's an important boundary here, because responsive desire does not mean forcing yourself to have sex when you don't want to either. There's a huge difference between I'm not turned on yet, but I'm open to see where this goes, and I don't want this. Your no still matters. I'm not saying it doesn't, but create an intimacy buffer. So 20-minute intimacy before deciding whether you're having sex, maybe. No television, no phones, no chores, no discussing the mortgage or arguing about what happened with the dishwasher or who didn't do what task for the day. Just connect. Maybe you take a shower, you play some music, you give a massage, you light a candle, you cuddle. So that's another thing you can do. Have a sign that one of you is in the mood. That way it's not a pressure thing. And if the other one's not in the mood, maybe you just blow out the candle. You're giving your nervous system time to move on from responsible mode to relationship mode to sexual mode if you choose to, but you don't have to force it. But having some type of signal helps as well. It's just kind of playful and fun. Have a 7-day reset, just fix your bedroom, cool it down, make sure it's clean, make sure it's tidy and organized. Then add non-sexual touching and flirtation for a while. Maybe have a few days off from sex or sexual pressure and just have intimacy with your partner again and have the conversation, because that's truly what we want. When you're in a relationship, you want intimacy, you want connection. That's the fun part of being in a relationship with someone. And sometimes it is time to get medical help. If you're having hot flashes or bleeding or dryness, you need to get help. Maybe for some of the things that menopause are causing. Sometimes you're having depression and you need some help as well, or daytime fatigue because you've got sleep apnea. All those things can be affected. But once you get help, life should start to open up for you, because sleep is the foundation to your entire life. Because sleep does lead to better health quality, better motivation, better sex. And women, sometimes we chase the libido that we had at 25. I'm not convinced that, always the right goal at 25. I think I had less of a libido than I do now. At 45, 55, 60, you may not understand your body. You just don't understand why your libido has changed. And your yes can become more intentional, more selective, confident. Frankly, I think it's more interesting. You may need different stimulation. There's toys you can incorporate. There's more emotional connection you can have, more time or lubrication, and different timing, even better sleep. But there should be less pressure. You don't have a defective sex drive. You just need more information and to take more time for you and figure out exactly what works. So here's your challenge for the week. If you can protect your sleep like it matters to your sex life, because it does, try to get at least 8 hours of sleep. You build your sleep ladder, the things that work for you to make sure your sleep is better. And then cool down the bedroom. Make sure that the bedroom's cool. Make sure that the climate works for you. Then identify if anything's waking you. Is it a dog or children or lights or a noise next door? Figure out solutions to make your sleep the most important thing, because then you treat the symptom that needs treated, and then you'll have more intimacy. And if you can figure out the best time of the day that you both like intimacy, that may actually give you more energy as well and bring back affectionate touching without obligation. Because sleep is important to intimacy and intimacy is important to sleep. So give, responsive desire enough time to show up. And sometimes rebuilding your sex life starts with something surprisingly uneasy, getting a really good night's sleep. So this is Diva Mia and the Diva Details, where we talk about love, sex, wellness. I hope that you're having a wonderful week. Until next time, protect your sleep, protect your energy, protect your power, stay strong, and never apologize for knowing exactly what your body needs. Have a great week.
Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment. We'd love hearing from you. Visit thedivadetails.com to connect. See you next week for more.
Diva Details podcast and website are intended solely for informational and entertainment purposes. The content provided does not constitute professional, medical, financial, or legal advice. We are not licensed medical practitioners, financial advisors, or legal professionals. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Any financial topics discussed are based on personal opinions and experience and should not be considered professional advice. The content provided does not constitute legal advice. The Diva Details and its affiliate contributors and guests are not liable for any losses or damages arising from the use of our content. The opinions expressed in the podcast are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of any affiliated organization, sponsors, or partners. While facts discussed in the podcast are researched and accurate to the best of our knowledge at the time of recording, information may change over time. No guarantees are made regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any statements or opinions presented. It is the responsibility of the listener to verify any and all facts that may influence their decision. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice.